Welcome to episode 62, everyone. In this one, I'll be applying Quinta Studio cockpit parts to TACOM's gorgeous 35 scale Apache. Recall that in the first video in the series, we unboxed this beautiful kit from TACOM. And in this video, I'll be taking a closer look at these 3D printed cockpit parts from Quinta Studio. These are of course brand new, and in this video I'll be taking a look at how to apply them as well as some of the do's and don'ts. But first, a word from the sponsor. Guys, the parts as well as the kit from TACOM has been generously sponsored by Supernova Studio here in South Africa. And do stick around, because at the end of this video I'll be supplying you with a promo code, and if you're in South Africa you can order this kit at a substantial discount, more than 300 Rand. So do stick around. I have to confess, I own a lot of aftermarket detail parts, and especially these new detail parts from Quinta Studio, and also I've never used a single one of them. Yes, that's true, I haven't really built a aircraft model in quite a while. So this was a new experience for me. Of course, these 3D printed parts are an alternative to the traditional colored cockpit parts printed on photo etched metal. Now, when this first appeared, it really took the hobby industry by storm, especially because of this beautiful 3D raised detail that you can see there, all the buttons, all the switches. And this is really a step up from the traditional flat two-dimensional photo etched parts. And of course, the beautiful thing is that more and more companies are now starting to bring this out. For instance, in this case, Eduard, which is well known for their photo etched parts. They've got a similar product out now. Now, to apply these unique parts to your model, you'll have to do something that's probably something that will make the skin crawl on traditionalists in the hobby. You'll have to remove some of the molded detail and replace them with these parts printed on decal paper. Now, it's very important to read the instructions very carefully, especially if, like myself, it is your first time applying this. In this neat little instruction booklet, the nature of these parts are explained, as well as the tips and techniques required to apply them, and do read through them carefully. The placement of these parts are indicated in this booklet as well, and it's very important that you take very good notice of where everything goes. There's a right and a left side in many cases, and you'll also have to remove some of the existing cockpit detail. For instance, in these control consoles at the side, these will all have to be removed before the Quinta parts can be fitted. Guys, now because we will be physically cutting away molded detail on this cockpit part, it's vitally important that you only remove the necessary sections. And to be double sure that I only remove the correct portions, I used a marker to mark the sections that I'll have to clean up before fitting the Quinta parts. And again, remember, there's no undo for this step. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's no way of replacing this. Removing the existing raised detail, the relief on these control surfaces, is also the biggest part of the procedure. Placing the decals themselves very easy. The biggest job is to remove the existing detail. Next, let's talk about tools. You'll need a hobby knife, and for this I'm going to put a brand new blade into my hobby knife just to make sure that I've got a nice sharp edge. You'll also need to sand and file away a lot of details. So I use this needle file as well as my sanders. These parts will have to be glued, and for this I'm going to use Quinta Studio's own 3D decal glue. The alternative is Ultra Glue from Ammomic. Both are PVA type glues, and also a gel type super glue such as this from Green Stuff World will come in handy. First step is to just mask the sections that won't need to be filed off, just to ensure that I don't damage them. This is what I did in this shot. And once this is done, you can get your needle file and start filing away the detail. You might need to use your side cutter as well, just to remove some of those buttons, and then progressively use finer and finer sanders just to get that surface completely smooth. Again, this is the biggest part of the job, and by far the most time went into just cleaning up these surfaces. There we go. After a few hours, this is the front control panel, and these are the sides, and we're ready to move on. Now at this point, once all these parts have been cleaned up, they need to be primed. For this I chose Mr. Hobby, just to get a very smooth surface, primed surface on this cockpit section. And you'll also have to match the color to both your reference pictures and the colors of the decals, and that's something that I did next. Guys, now I'm skipping a few steps here, and those I'll be covering in an upcoming video. Now once all these cockpit parts have been painted, I gave them a clear coat of micro satin. And to apply the cockpit parts, obviously you'll need the decal card from Quinta Studio, as well as the instruction booklet, just to show you where everything goes. You'll also need a sharp pair of scissors, and also your adhesive, your glue. And of course these have been printed on decal paper, so you'll need some water as well. For this I used lukewarm water from the sink, just ordinary tap water. Once you have all the tools together, just familiarize yourself again exactly where every single panel goes. You can never prepare enough before applying these decals. So there we go. The first ones will be these side consoles, and the next step will be to carefully cut them from that card. Now while these detail parts have been printed on decal paper, that's about where the similarity to regular decals end, and I'll explain in a second. You'll be working with a lot of really small parts, and just to keep things organized, I use these trays on my bench just to make sure that I don't lose anything. Just as with the regular decals, these are placed in the water for a few seconds. They don't need to stay there for too long. And once they're removed, it's very easy to just slip them off that carrier film. The cool thing about these are that they are flexible once they're removed from the decal card. They're completely flexible, and you can shape them around corners. Next I'm going to apply some of this PVA type glue from Quinta Studio, their own glue. It's a very thin type adhesive. You only need a little bit, and this can be spread out with a toothpick. The detail part is now placed, positioned, and I used a damp cotton bud just to press out the excess glue and make sure that it's completely flat on the surface. And you can see there, very easy to apply. Guys, now just a word of warning about this glue. Because it's so thin, it dries quite easily in that nozzle. Yeah, this happened earlier. And once I cleared the nozzle and just cleaned up that excess glue in the part, I was good to go again. The set also contains some very, very small parts, and such as this little gauge or stopwatch. And you'll have to be super careful when applying this. Tiny drop of Quinta Studio's glue is required. Carefully place this in position with your tweezer, press it down, and hey presto, there you go. Next up is the front console. This consists of quite a few parts, and again I follow the same procedure, just applying that glue, pressing down the part gently, making sure it's in position. Now this is where things got tricky, because this tiny little lever, about 1 millimeter or so, has to be applied on top of the existing console next. And to get good adhesion, I used a tiny drop of gel type super glue, as well as my tweezers. And there you go. Certainly a nice detail added there, lots of 3D realism. The monitor is up next. And first again applying my adhesive, making sure it covers the entire surface, and then gently press that part into position. What I love about the monitor parts is the gloss finish that they have on them. It makes it look like real glass, and there's no need for you to apply this again afterwards. The seats are up next, and if you look at reference pictures, you'll see that it's got this mesh type woven texture to them, a bit of a lighter color than the cockpit. And Quinta faithfully reproduced this on their detail parts. Here, the thing to keep in mind is to make sure that you paint your seats the same color as the decals. I used Vallejo green brown as well as some medium gray, and I just kept on mixing a color until I had something that was very close to the color of that detail part. You can see there. This is now applied to the seat itself, the seat part, and once this is done, the decals can be applied. Again, this is carefully cut from the decal sheet, and this is now placed on the seat. You'll see it covers the entire surface of that seat. It's got all that nice texture that we need. And a surprise here was that this is so thin that when properly pressed down, it took to the recessed detail on that seat, the folds in that seat. How cool is that? There we go. The seat, the backrest, and the headrest has been applied, and we can move on to the harness. Now, these are very small parts, and again, a surprise. These are printed on both sides, so you can easily twist up and wrap these around things without having a piece of white vinyl staring you in the face. They're very thin, so it's very easy to just shape them into position, drape them over the sides, and if you play with this for a while, you can end up with a very realistic looking effect. You can see there on those harnesses. Something to keep in mind is that this little hole where the shoulder harness has to go through is a bit small, so I had to cut the edge of the shoulder harness, the one piece, a bit smaller, just to make it fit through the back. You can see there. Tiny drop of super glue is required next, just to stick that in place. Placing this at the bottom so we don't see it. One of the reasons why I love this gel type super glue from Green Stuff World. Press it into place. There we go. The second shoulder harness fits underneath, and once the super glue forms a bond, you've got your completed harness. How cool is that? Guys, and there we go. The seats are done with the harnesses. All the required texture and color is there, and I'm certainly loving this result. It's very important to keep this little booklet close by because it's very easy to screw this stuff up. For a lot of these consoles, there's a right and a left side, and make dead sure that you are placing the correct part on the correct side. For instance, these two control consoles on the back of the rear bulkhead. I'm sure traditionalists will frown upon this and say, well, it's cheating. I can't say that I agree with that. It's very easy to screw this up, and a good amount of skill is required to properly place these parts on the model. Guys, and there are the results. I'm certainly loving this. This of course is not done yet. In an upcoming video I'll be showing you the additional detailing that I did to complete this cockpit. Guys, as I mentioned in the beginning, this kit is available from Supernova Studio. If you use the promo code Longbow2601, you will get an instant discount. And this is a great opportunity to add this to your stash. Stocks are limited, so make sure that you order yours as soon as possible. So this is it for episode 62. Of course, the cockpit still requires a lot of work, and that's something I'll be covering in an upcoming video soon. In the meantime, do join me on Instagram. I post regular updates there, and looking forward to seeing everyone in the next video. Thank you for watching.